space of time with a gift and with a talent to say, I want you to have dominion. I want you to rule, and I want you to repopulate. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, and to make a difference. But in order to make a difference, you've got to understand your why. We have viewers that live stream, and thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us, from whether it's from New Orleans, whether it's Georgia, whether it is Memphis, whether it is Los Angeles or Texas, Illinois. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you being with us. I'm not going to mismanage our time today because I am delighted. I say every week, I'm delighted to have all of my guests. I got to be honest, I got to be fair, that when the Lord released me to do this program, I said, there's a top 10 that I put together. All right. I never admit all who's been on the top 10 because that would be unfair. But I did make a top 10 list and say, Lord, if there's any way of negotiating with the Lord, then, and God doesn't negotiate, by the way. So just being a little lighthearted with that. I said, Lord, if you want me to do this program, and I will, because I'm committed to you, I want to put together a top 10 list of people that I'd like to interview. I'm curious about them. I'm curious about their life. I noticed them in the marketplace, and it's something very peculiar. It's very something special about them, more than their position and the title that they hold. Because when I observe them in the marketplace, they don't allow their position or their authority with the place that they sit dictate them being an ogre, if you will, or a Wizard of Oz with a big stick in the community. Well, Mayo Flint is one of those persons in my top 10. You know, this program, if you've been riding with us a long time, you know this is not an academic formatted kind of program. It's kind of behind the scene, behind the title, what you don't know about the person. The people that I invite on, they're people to encourage you, that will share their testimony. Because when you look at certain people, and I need to kind of, create I need to create the program today to kind of let you know. So it's like a monologue. So thank you for just kind of being patient. Um, when you look at certain people, like, oh, they've never had trials. Oh, they've never had challenges, because you see them in a particular space and you just assume that they don't cry, that they don't sleep, they don't eat. But that's superficial. And that's why I enjoy having people on like my guest today. Yes, he is incredibly profound with his profession. He knows exactly what he is doing, but he is so engaging. He has a big title. He has an incredible title. He has an important title. And when I see him in important functions, he is so approachable, and he is one of the nicest people that you will ever meet. He doesn't throw his title around, or he doesn't beat you up with his title. My guest today, Mayo Flint, is president of AT&T Mississippi, a position that he's held since January 2007. As president, Mayo is responsible for AT&T's operations in Mississippi, including external affairs, regulatory affairs, and public policy. Prior to this appointment, Mayo held a series of positions with Bell South, of increasing responsibility for regulatory and legislative affairs on the state and federal level, as well as internationally. He is the past chairman of the Mississippi Economic Council, the Mississippi Partnership for Economic Development, Innovative Mississippi, and the Greater Jackson Chamber of Commerce Partnership, where he currently chairs the Lake Development Task Force, in addition to his involvement in their organization. Mayo is the chairman of the Mississippi Museum of Art Board of Trustee and a member of the Jackson Rotary Club. Mayo is a graduate of the University of Mississippi. He and his wife, Renee, have two daughters, Sarah, Catherine, and Olivia. I know some of that has changed a little bit because your resume, I'm like, does he get tired of being on boards, man, and being stretched on and being called upon? If I read his entire resume, his body of work, we'd be here for 4 hours. And so that is the academic part of who he is. So that's all you're going to hear about that today. He has worked hard. He has prepared himself for the position that he holds, but I don't want to talk about that today. Mel Flint, my friend, welcome to Defining Moments, man.
Well, thank you, Larry. It's great to be here again.
Well, you know,
how many years has it been? 3 years?
It's
or
been
4 years?
it's been 3 or 4 years
Right.
when I first called you, and so I said, man, will you come on and just share? And you said yes, and you said it so quickly. I'm like, I didn't expect you to say yes so quickly. I'm like, well, let my people call your people. Let my secretary call your secretary. And I think because we had developed a relationship and my level of character, my level of integrity, you could trust me. And and I was curious about your journey. You know,
we had a little interesting talk at lunch.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. You have an amazing memory.
Well, I remember that. Yeah, sure, cool.
You really did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so your journey was important when people, once again, when they see people like you in authoritative positions, they're like, he didn't have anything to talk about because he was born and raised with a silver spoon. I'm like, man, you'd be surprised. Where you are, you've worked to get here. No one has just wave a magic wand and say, Mel, I want you to be president of AT&T. You have worked to get here. And you're very passionate about the community and about giving and about ministry. So now that people know the academic, if you'd like to find out more about him, then of course you can Google him. But I told people in the blast that there's more to Mayo behind the title. And I think they'll be intrigued and I think they'll be inspired because, Brother Mel, there are a lot of people who have a lot of important titles. They have a goo gob of money, all right, a lot of prestige, but they're not happy. And I know in the seat that you're in, it comes with a lot of stress by default. But every time I see you, you just seem to be at peace. And just the energy that comes from you, you're approachable. You're a nice person. I can't imagine the beehive that you have to work in, but it appears that you don't allow it to control you. So will you just share with the people that that they're in the beehive and they're miserable in life? They're making a whole lot of money, but they're miserable in life. They're taking all kinds of blood pressure pills, high level of anxiety. Will you kind of share with them that you know what you can be in stressful situations without becoming stressed, and the way to do that is just to kind of go back and start sharing with them your background.
Well, I guess I grew up in the church and grew up in First Baptist Church here in Jackson, and so I grew up in a family of faith. But you know how that goes.
Yeah.
Everybody needs to come to their own relationship with Jesus, and they need to, well, they just need to have their own relationship with Jesus. And it's obviously helpful to be born into a family of faith. I think that puts you on the right path in the right direction. But it's more than just your parents' religion or belief. You've got to get to know Jesus on your own. And I was baptized as a young boy, and I'd say right before I was a teenager. I can't remember exactly when. I went off to college, and with a lot of like a lot of people, I went with a Bible in one hand and a bottle of bourbon in the other hand, and that didn't work out so well. But as I got out of college, I can remember one day I was actually working in Atlanta, and I was riding in traffic. I was listening to news, and there was some interview with somebody of another faith somewhere in the world, and they were talking about their faith, and it just kind of struck me that I thought, that guy knows more about his faith than I know about my own faith. And I started to realize that I had not really spent a lot of time really understanding my faith. And what the Bible has to say about a lot of aspects of life. And, the Holy Spirit convicted me about that at that point. And then I was introduced to a friend at work introduced me to Bible Study Fellowship, which is a great program. And so I just say that to say that started me down the journey of being more serious about my faith and being more serious about, I guess, being more intentional about having a relationship with Jesus. And
I've always said that God gives each of us a defining moment. He gives some of us many defining moments. And I liken it to David had a defining moment facing Goliath, Daniel, the Hebrew boys, even Jesus had a defining moment in the Garden of Gethsemane. Paul had a defining moment on the Damascus Road. Moses had a defining, at the sea. We all have defining moments. God is always trying to beckon us to himself. We have a choice to recognize it, to embrace it, or to repel against it. Even though you went to college, because that's where some young people lose it. They become wayward. They become more rebellious. But even though you went to college, you were able to keep focus on not becoming lured away by the enticements of the world.
yeah, well, I mean, I strayed. Don't get me wrong. And it was, I remember I went to see Jimmy Turner, who was a RUF minister
Right.
at Ole Miss at the time. And, and I remember one of the things that Jimmy said to me that was so powerful was, I was acknowledging that I had not been behaving right, and I'd been living my life wrong, and that I needed quote unquote kind of change and get back on the path. And he said, well, you can't change yourself. And I sat there and I thought,
That's powerful.
man, what are you telling me that for? I mean, I'm here for help, and you're telling me I can't change. And he said, well, you can't change yourself. Only Jesus can change your heart.
That sounded foreign to you, didn't it?
It did. It did. And even though I'd grown up in the church, I was kind of like, wow. And it kicked me in the head. And that was really, really, I guess, as you would say, that was the moment. And then, after that, as I said, I went on and, got married and started a family. We started a family, and work had started, but it was really, I'd say that conversation with Jimmy was very important. Then, getting more serious about, really trying to be intentional about having a relationship with Jesus and really understanding what the Bible says, and not just going to church on Sunday, but living day in and day, trying to live in the presence of God day in and day out.
So did you? But before you went to college, did you have a sense of accountability or affirmation from your parents that you're not going to be a heathen? All right. So they had an expectation of you.
Absolutely.
So then, how important? Twofold question: how important do you believe it is for parents to affirm their children? All right, and how important is it for children to know that they have support in the household? Because I think that's some of the problem. That some parents just kind of put their children on auto, let them go, and wherever they end, and that's where they end because they think they need to be free. All right. And some children are out there not knowing what life expects of them or what their parent expects of them.
Right. Well, I totally believe that, as a parent, your role is to lead and to guide your children. And I think that begins at birth, even pre-birth, and, praying over them and nurturing them when they come out of the womb. And, I think that, I always try to nurture my daughters, hug them and let them know that they were loved and valued and appreciated. And I mean, I'm not saying I'm a perfect dad. I have my moments like everybody else, right? But yes, I mean, to be engaged in their lives and to be giving them, direction and and I think, praying for them.
You said something a moment ago. You said, and like I'm an engaged parent, and I don't apologize for that. I don't necessarily get it right. None of us do. I don't think there's a book out there that can say this is the cookie cutter book.
Right. I mean, that's the thing, right? You become a parent, and you watch your parents parent,
Right.
and then you become a parent. And you go, wait a minute. You think that
there's a disconnect here.
Your first reaction is there is no manual, but truly there is a manual, and that's the Bible. And if you spend enough time in the Word, and there are plenty of people who I would consider Christian coaches on parenting. And if you there, so there is a manual. I mean, it's not, it's not what you might expect it to be.
But there is one out there.
There is one out there.
But it seems to me that your life has always been intentional. Has it always been intentional?
When you say, define intentional.
So in other words, you know exactly what you want to do. There are some folk that get up and don't know what they're going to do.
Well, yes, but what I wanted to do was not always what God wanted me to do. And
so how challenging was it for you to relinquish your will and say, this is what I want to do? Okay.
Well, I've told this story to students when I've been invited to speak to groups in college and stuff like that. When I got out of school, out of college, I thought I wanted to be a Wall Street guy.
Yeah.
Right. And I got out of school, and I tell these folks, I got ignored. I mean, they didn't even send me rejection letters when I applied for jobs. I mean, it was pretty.
Now that floors me because of your aptitude.
Well, but at the time it was like stuff.
They look at you now like, we made a mistake on this one.
No, I mean, it was just one of those things where I thought that's what I wanted to do, and I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And
be a Wall Street guy.
Yeah, and so I got out, and like I say, I couldn't get anybody to give me any attention. I think I had one interview.
Looking back, do you believe God kept that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. He kept that door shut. And I think he kept it shut because I think that I was getting it. My thoughts about that were for all the wrong reasons.
Got it.
They were all about me and about making money. And so I think he knew that I wasn't mature enough as in my faith to handle it.
So what would you tell people? What wisdom would you tell people, May, about folk who've been trying and they're getting rejection letters, or they're hearing crickets and they're not hearing, and they just and they're disappointed?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I was disappointed, and my wife, well, let's see, I don't know if we got married. I'm trying to remember if we had gotten married or not, because this went on for a little while. But Renee, she heard all my whining and complaining about that at the time, and I guess what I'd say is, everybody's situation is different,
Mm-hmm.
but if something's not happening for you, then it's either because you're blocking the Lord from giving you what he wants to give you, or you're just not paying attention. I mean, and
slow down. What you said was powerful. I want you to look at that camera. And I want you to tell them exactly what you just said, because there's some folk right now, Mel, that's frustrated. They're frustrated. I want you to look at them.
Okay.
There's some folk frustrated.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is in my experience, and from what I've read, as a matter of fact, we were reading something this morning about this, but if something's not happening in your life, then it may be that there is something in you that's blocking the Lord from giving you what he wants to give you. Or it may just be that his path for you is different than the one that you have set for yourself. And that was my experience. Early on in my career, I thought I was going to do one thing, and he just said, "No, you're not." And
So how do you collect yourself on that? How did you get over that?
well, at the time, I didn't know what to do.
Got it.
You know,
Thank you for being honest.
yeah,
Because there's some folk out there that watch or
Yeah.
listen like, well, I have it all in. Be honest. I don't know what to do.
I didn't know what to do. I mean, and I was a lot. I mean, this was 30 years ago. So I was a lot younger person. My faith was not nearly what it is after 30 years of life, and so I was.
Did you want to hold your fist up at God?
Not so much. I mean, I wouldn't say that, but I was just confused. I just didn't understand. I just thought, I just didn't know what to do, and it took a period of time, and finally I just thought to myself, well, this is apparently not what I'm supposed to do. And so then the question was, well, what am I supposed to do? And I had no idea. And so I just kind of started going forward, but I didn't know where I was going.
I want you to hold that thought. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm with my friend, Mel Flint, the president of Mississippi AT&T. You stay tuned. It doesn't sound good English-wise. One deacon said it gets gooder and gooder. We'll be right back on Defining Moment. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate that. I know that you have already been encouraged because of what Mel said. He said, if it's not happening, it could be that this is not the path, number one, or God is working on you. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is not what God wants you to do, but if he gave it to you right now, you probably wouldn't know what to do with it, or you'll mess it up. And God is more concerned about loving you and you staying within his will than him giving you a new shiny something and you falling out of his will. And so at some point you said, Mel, this probably is not for me.
Right. And so I just said, well, I just got to figure out what is. And I didn't, like I said, I didn't know where I was going.
But did that cause you to spend more time with God to say, okay, God, what is it? Or to do more soul searching within self?
Yeah. Yeah. But I wouldn't say that there was some of that, but I wouldn't go. I would say later in my life with other, I don't want to use the word crises,
right?
But events there, as I moved further along in my faith, then, and I think that's just the way we all do. You start to turn faster toward the Lord, right? At the time, yes, I mean, but I don't really remember that being a humongous focus.
Right.
I will tell you that, it was a point where I started to realize, well, like I said, I just thought, I don't think I'm supposed to be doing this. I don't think this is what God wants from me.
Hold that thought. Welcome back. Jesus said, Father, if I'd really prefer that you pass this cup away from me, this bitter cup in the Garden of Gethsemane. He said, but not my will, but thine will be done. At some point, you have to relinquish what you want to do and say, Lord, not my will, but thine will be done. And even though you saw yourself, and by the way, when I look at you, you look like a Wall Street type. You're like, when you walked in this morning, you're so dapper. You've always been, maybe like you're about to, it's just like you just took over some Fortune 500 company. I'm like, what else are you going to take over today? But you said, okay, God, this is not working. And it's not like I got it then, but you just realized at that point, this is not going to work. I need to close this chapter and I need to move on.
Right. And so, I think that, I mean, like I said earlier, sometimes we've got thoughts and ideas about where our life is going or should go. And I think we're supposed to make plans, right? And, I mean, we're not supposed to just sit on the log, you know, but sometimes, your plans are not God's plans for you. And in this instance, I feel like that God was protecting me. And so he didn't let me move forward in that area. I don't think I would have, I don't think it would have been good for me. And I don't think it would have glorified him. And then the other, like I said, is I think sometimes if, it may be that there's something that is blocking the Lord from blessing you the way he wants to bless you. And we got into this, we talked about this the last time I was on the show a few years ago. And this truly was a defining, I mean, the defining moment for me. And that was one time. Okay, so let me see. I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible because there's so much history here. But I think I shared. I don't think I know. I shared with you last time. There was a period in my life, it's like 15 to 20 years ago at this point, where I had been growing in my faith, but there was just something that I felt like something was missing, and I felt like I wasn't growing. I don't know if I'll say enough, but I just felt like there could be more growth. Let's put it that way. And I looked around at others, right, and who I felt were good examples of Christ, and so we were at I was at a church that we were going to in Birmingham, and the pastor did this prayer, and you're smiling, so I think you're starting to remember the story. And so we're there, and he says, I just want, and it was a small new church that had started out of another church, and so there weren't many people there that night. And there was a guest pastor, and he said, I want you to pray and ask the Lord, is there anything standing between you and him having the relationship that he wants to have with you? And God spoke to me in that moment, and I want to be very clear about this. It was as audible in my ear as what I'm hearing through these headphones on my ear right now. I'm not talking about in my spirit I felt or anything like that. God spoke to me, and he said, go to her. Well, I knew immediately what he was talking about. And that was that when I was
Ladies and gentlemen, pull a little closer. You're going to get blessed. Pull up a little closer.
When I was a boy, my mother left my father and my brother for me. And I had not seen her since she left. And as you can imagine, and that was a traumatic event for our family. And so in my heart, and I frankly had forgotten about it, but in my heart, and the Lord reminded me of this later through the ministry of some ladies in my church who blessed me. But he reminded me that when my mother left, I made this vow that she would never see me again, and which is, pretty understandable.
Absolutely.
Due to the pain.
Sure.
But still, that was not my decision to make. And so I had judged her, and I sentenced her. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, growing up, I had just kind of moved on, and but the Lord had shown me that I had this area of my heart that I had never turned over to Him, and so
wow,
it happened. And I'll tell you the thing that's interesting about it, it happened again. That was on a Wednesday night, and I came home and told my wife, and then we're in church on Sunday, and a different pastor did the exact same thing. And I prayed the prayer, and the exact same thing happened again for the second time. The Lord said, "Go to her," just as clear as that. And so I immediately, I pretty quickly thought, well, I got to deal, I got to do this, right? I got to go to her, and then all of a sudden I felt like the Lord just said, "But not now." And that led me on a multi-year
Wow.
path.
Not a multi-day, not a multi-week,
No,
multi-year.
multi-year. It was several years, and
When the Lord told you that you immediately become anxious, that you got to go to her.
oh yeah, absolutely. I said, well, because I had made this vow, right, that she would never see me again. So I needed to break the vow, and I needed to deal with that, and that was what I felt like. So I wanted that off my plate, right? But
That's good. That's good. That's good. Okay, God, if you want me to do it, I'll do it right now. I see my producer over there smiling. You're right. Let's just get it done right. And God said, wait, I told you to do it, but not now. It's almost like the scenario with Samuel and the oil flowing on David. Yeah, you're going to be king, but not now. You got to go through the process.
Right. And the process was a multi-year process. It was a long time. I was involved in this. I went to this ministry called Elijah House.
Yep.
And you can, people can Google it and explore it. I endorse it and encourage it. But it's all about how we make judgments or vows in our heart, and there are consequences to that. We reap what we sow. And so,
wow, that's good. That's good.
We sow judgment, and then we get judgment. And so we make these vows, and we lock ourselves into the vow. And
wow.
And so I started going to Elijah House for several years, and all this while, life is going on, and I'm kind of wondering.
Are you a new dad at this point?
No, I've been a dad.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I've been a dad.
So you've gotten married, and now you've been a dad.
Our kids were, young, I'd say junior high, elementary school, kind of at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would go to the Lodge House and come back, and then eventually, like I said, it was after several years, I just felt the Lord, and this was more just in my spirit. I felt the Lord saying, "It's time." And so I reached out, to my mother.
Nervous?
Well,
apprehensive?
In the reaching out part, I was not nervous or relieved. When I was driving there to meet her for the first time, I was a wreck.
Did you try to figure out what you're going to say?
Oh well, yeah. I was very anxious, very nervous, and
was it because of you seeing her, or you wanted to control the possible venom?
No, I didn't have any venom. I had forgiven her, and that's what this process, this journey that Elijah House had helped me through, was I had forgiven her in my heart unconditionally. So it was just more, I think, a lot of old things welling up in my spirit.
So I hear someone saying right now, and you're watching me, and you're saying, "Oh, I can't do that because this person has hurt me pretty bad." Mayo, you're better than I am because I just can't do it. How would you respond to that?
Well, you absolutely can. You just absolutely can, and you absolutely have to. I mean, if you're a Christian, this is not an elective, right? I mean, we are called to forgive. It's not if we want to.
You're saying some strong stuff. This is good medicine. I know why you're on this program today now. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining. Stay tuned. My friend Mayo Flynn on Defining Moments. Someone said the other day, every person, they have a right to have their opinion, but every person doesn't have a right to have their own truth. The truth is the truth. And you just presented the truth. And the truth is, if you're a Christian, you just said you are called. It's not up for negotiations. It's not up for debate. You just said you're called to forgive. You're called to walk it out per the instructions that you alluded to earlier.
Right, and not forgiving is just poisonous to you. Um, you know, and like I said, you know, what I saw in my life was, remember, going back to the original prayer.
Yeah.
If there's anything standing between me and Jesus having the relationship that he wants to have with me, show me what that is. So it's blocking the Lord from blessing you. And you know, the Lord's not going to run over your will, right? So, I mean,
You got to come back a third time. I can tell you right now, because the Lord is not going to run over your will.
no, I mean, it's all about surrender, right? He wants us to surrender to him and to allow him to come in and work his will in our lives. But he's not going to just steamroll over you.
Something Jesus
He may
says.
make it hard on you.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, Mel Flint, he is the president of AT&T Mississippi. This is the behind the title. Paul Harvey would say, and now the rest of the story. You said something very powerful. You said, God is not going to steamroll over your will. Jesus says this, I stand at the door and knock. But if any man would open, then I'll come in. That's just what you said.
Right. And this is right. This is my testimony. This is my experience. Is that the Lord was prevented from blessing me because I had this major issue in my life. I mean, what is the fifth commandment? Honor your mother and your father.
That your days may be long upon the earth.
That's right. And so I had not been honoring my mother and her position as my mother. Now that doesn't.
But Mel, you don't know what she did to me. No, I'm speaking vicariously.
Right.
Mel, you just don't know. I'm telling you, you don't know what she did to me. You don't know what he did to me.
Right. No, I understand all that. I know. I understand. I get it. I was a fourth grader whose mother left a week or two before Christmas. So I get
Fourth grader,
Yeah.
your mother left a few days before Christmas.
Yeah.
Salt on the wound.
with no, I mean, it was just, nobody saw it coming. And so I understand all of that. I do. I really do.
However,
you know, we all have to, I mean, if anyone is struggling with this issue in their life, I don't have the answer for them. They have to talk to Jesus about it.
thank you for being honest. Thank you for being transparent about your journey. And thank you for being honest, because there are folk who just pulled up to the microphone to say, okay, now what is he going to? He's going to give me a 3-step program. He's going to give me and you're saying, I don't have the answer.
No.
Other than the fact, talk to
Talk
Jesus.
to Jesus.
Because he has the answer.
That's right. And you know, what I learned in Elijah House is there are things in our lives that we have done in the past, judgments, vows, bitter roots, where, and a lot of times we've just forgotten that we've done them, but we violated God's law in the process. And so we are going to reap what we sow. And so until we,
I keep interrupting you. I know how to be, I know how to host a program. So I'm just breaking all the rules because I keep interrupting you. But you just said something powerful. You said we violated God's law.
Yeah.
That's a powerful indictment. And it just doesn't go away because God forgets. We have to go back and rectify those things, don't we?
That's right. We do. And we have to go back and rectify them. And sometimes we don't even remember. Like, you know, somebody may be doing something in their life, and they may know it's wrong, and they may be trying to stop, but they keep doing it. And it's because they're locked into this sin in their life, this area of unforgiveness that's in their heart. And so what needs to be done is they need to say, where is this coming from?
That's good.
Where is this coming?
That's good.
Why is this happening?
Why am I doing this? Why do I keep doing it?
Why do I keep doing this? That's right. And I, my experience has been that through listening prayer, it's uncomfortable at first. Just
because it's pointing at you.
Well, no, because it's weird. You're just sitting there in
Okay.
silence, right? And you're asking Jesus, where is this coming from? And then you just need to sit and listen. A lot of, so much of, we just talk. We just talk and talk and talk and talk. But we need to sit and listen in these instances to what Jesus wants to tell us. We need to sit in silence, and we need to be quiet, and we need to listen to the Holy Spirit.
And that's challenging,
And
because it's like, okay,
it's unusual. It's uncomfortable.
it is. Okay, God, you got 60 seconds to talk.
That's right. That's right.
You know,
That's right. I got 30 minutes this morning, and then I gotta
go.
I gotta get in the shower, and I gotta eat my cereal. Right.
But you're saying it does not work like that.
It does not work like that. And so we've got to. I'm just, like I say, I'm just speaking from experience.
Sure.
And what I have observed in my life in a number of areas is that God works in long arcs over the paths of our lives, and we're understandably we want everything to be healed and fixed and right, and I believe that He will do that if we let Him. But in my experience, it never happens as fast as I want it to happen.
You're providing great counsel, Neil. You're providing great teaching, because religion
Right.
has just devastated a lot of folk,
Right.
created a lot of expectations, have hurt people, and have caused them to walk away from the church,
Right.
from Jesus Christ, because of their perception of what it is.
Right.
And what you suggested up to this point, it's about you having a relationship. A relationship takes time to develop.
Right. Exactly. And that's the thing. We spend all this time learning a trade or learning whatever your hobby is. Learning how to hunt.
That's good.
And so, but we don't, if we're not spending time with Jesus in the Word, that relationship's just not going to grow. The more time I spend with you, the deeper our relationship's going to be. That's the way life.
And we can be in a busy gala or a busy event, and if I see you across the room, or if you see me across the room, somehow I will make my way to you, or you will make your way to me, just to greet one another,
Because I want to be with you,
and genuinely glad to see one another,
right. And so
without having an ulterior motive.
Right. And so if I really want to be with Jesus, then I'll make time to be with Jesus. And look, and I'm not saying, look, this is something that I work on. I think people of faith work on
every day.
And but it's building, it's learning to build these disciplines into our lives so that it just becomes who we are.
So God told you it's time, but not
But
now.
not now.
And He worked on you for years to make that trip, to prepare you
That's right.
to face your mother,
Right. Mm-hmm.
so that you wouldn't create a more difficult problem when you saw.
Yeah, what I realized afterwards.
Okay.
What I realized afterwards was that He prepared me to be the person that He wanted me to be when I met her.
Wow.
Not the person that I was when He first told me to go. He said, I think you're not ready. You need to grow. And so over those years, I did grow, and he showed me a lot of things about myself and about forgiveness, and so I was, as I said earlier, I was very anxious, very nervous, and I pulled up to our house, and I said a final prayer, and I will tell you that I went inside and I was at total peace for the entire time that we reunited. And
Was she nervous? Could you detect anxiety within her?
well, I mean, I think a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it was awkward. We hadn't seen each other, you know, since I was in the fourth grade. And here I was, a grown man with a family, and
Successful.
2 daughters, and and so I mean, so it was unusual. I mean, you can't. I mean, I say you can't imagine. I think you can imagine it, but it's unusual.
Can you allow us, because I can see it. You've painted a wonderful picture, but will you allow us to share some of the dialogue that you feel comfortable with,
Yeah,
to
sure.
the extent of?
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that I made it. I wanted to make it clear to her, like she was thanking me, and for lack of a better word, praising me for coming, and I was telling her that it had nothing to do with me. That the only reason I was there was because of Jesus. Jesus had sent me there.
Wow.
That Jesus had told me to come. That Jesus had prepared me to come. And that so don't praise me, because if it had been up to me,
You wouldn't have
I
gone,
wouldn't have ever.
because you made a declaration
Right.
years before.
Right. Exactly.
That's it.
That's right. So it was God. I mean, this is a tremendous act of God in my life. Him speaking, I mean, when I say kicking me in the head, he spoke to me in such a direct fashion that I could not hear it. And because of that, I eventually reunited with him.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, I am being blessed. I thank you for joining me. The story, it gets deeper, it becomes more provocative. Stay tuned, my friend, the man behind the title, Mayo Flynn, on the Final Moments. And so Jesus had to tell you, he had to prepare you. Go back to the initial conversation that you and I had. God may want you to have something, but he's got to prepare you for it.
That's right.
And God had to do some work in Mayo's life.
Absolutely.
Because of the bigger picture. So without sharing it or getting that, you actually, it sounds like you started witnessing to your mother, or she at least saw the love of Jesus Christ in your life.
Yeah. And I mean, well, I just wanted to be, yes. I mean, I didn't want to get the credit, is my point.
Got it.
I didn't think I was due credit.
Hold that thought. And that is exactly your MO. I've always observed, you don't want to get the credit. I felt uncomfortable even reading your bio, but I wanted to acknowledge to people that, man, you've done a lot of good. You've utilized your position, and you've done a lot of good with it. Elijah House, because you're in the community. You're always in the community. I wonder when you sleep sometimes. Because you're always in the community helping. 2 questions. How difficult is it for you to balance corporate and your faith? Because you're very expressive when it comes to your faith, and it's hard for me to believe that a Mr. Haney kind of type, remember Green Acres, a Mr. Haney type can come in and sell you, a lake in the desert. I don't believe that about you. You're more astute than that. But how difficult is it for you to balance that, or do you even need to?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I work with a lot of good people. I work with a lot of believers, and so that's helpful. And I haven't ever been asked to do anything that
Violates. My producer just told me that we're in the last segment. I can't believe this, man. So I'm gonna get you on the record.
uh-oh.
I'm gonna be kind of sneaky. I'm gonna get you on the record. Will you come back again?
Yeah, sure.
Man, I so enjoy talking to you. Your testimony. Elijah House, you talk about that a lot. So Elijah House was kind of the defining ministry
Yeah.
place
Absolutely.
that kind of helped you
Right. Yeah.
reevaluate.
Right. It was started by a pastor named John Sanford, and they were out of I think Oregon, where they started, and I became exposed to them by a couple of ladies in my church. I referenced that earlier.
Will you just kind of give a snippet of that? Because you shared, man, if God is telling you to engage someone, do it. Because these ladies, they influenced you because they saw something inside of you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I shared with one of them what had happened, and she told me, she said, I feel like there's this little area of your heart that you held back from God, and God wants our whole heart, and He wants all of it. And so she was actually the one that talked to me first about a vow, and when she explained to me about you make vows, I will never, here's an example.
That's powerful.
I'll never be like Dad.
That's powerful.
I'll never do this. I'll never do that. And when we do those types of things, what we're doing is we're actually judging the actions of the other person. And so I made this anyway. I made this vow that I told you about. Well, I had forgotten about it, but when she said that, the Holy Spirit reminded me that I made this vow that she would never see me again. And so Ann and Casey talked to me more about. I was like, well, tell me more about this. Tell me more about what you're talking about. And so they gave me they ministered to me and then shared a book with me, John Sanford's original book, Transformation of the Inner Man, and I just devoured it.
Transformation of the inner man.
Yeah, it's out of print now.
Okay.
I think but if you Google it and Google John Sanford, I can't remember what the title is now. Transforming the Inner Man.
Got it.
But it's so I read it, and then I didn't really know what else to do. But then eventually we moved on to Jackson, and I was at a church retreat in Pine Lake, and there was a moment where we're supposed to kind of pray about what do you think the Lord wants you to do. And so I just felt the Lord was saying to me, you need to go deeper into this Elijah House ministry. And so I came away from that retreat saying, I don't know if I have to take vacation time. I'm going to go because I knew that they had these classes,
right?
And they were more in depth, right, than just the book. And so I found out about there was one in Huntsville, Alabama, on Saturdays, and so I called them, signed up, and so I get in the car on Friday, and I drive to Huntsville and be there on Saturday for part of the day, and get in the car and drive back. And there were about 6 sessions over, let's say, 3 or 4 months. I can't remember. I was spaced out every couple of weeks, whatever. So I did that for 4 years, first part of the year. And it was really through that ministry. And it's really, there are biblical principles that they teach you that help you to talk to the Holy Spirit about what's in your heart.
And what I'm lifting from you, what I'm gleaning from you today is that if you're in a place of being confused and have a sense of anxiety about where it's okay to reach out.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that's where, and sometimes I think that because of pride, well, I'm not going to tell anybody because they have a perception of, well, he ought to be able to figure it out, or she ought to be able to figure it out. And we just stay quietly aggravated about where we are. There are a couple of things that you lifted. Number one, now I know why you're here today. I said that earlier, is to speak about forgiveness. There are folk who are listening and watching that you're holding that unforgiveness in your heart, and you're saying it is paralyzing you from God blessing you. All right. And then number two,
keeping you from freedom.
keeping you from freedom.
Yeah.
And then half disobedient is full disobedience, or half obedience is full disobedience. You know, and then you need to you need to understand that what you say has consequences. Those are the three takeaways that I take from you today.
Yeah, and what you were just talking about just a second ago, I mean, we are relational, right?
Right.
And so, and we need to be wise about who we talk to, people. You know, I mean,
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely.
I want to be really clear about that. I mean, we need to be wise.
I just go talk to anybody and tell your business to.
Right. Who we open our hearts to. We need to find people who are, spiritually mature, to visit with and to share things with. And so, I was blessed in that area.
So as the Lord has risen you through the ranks of, the telecommunication industry, and now you're the big kahuna of AT&T. I said it, you did. All right. Then you don't use that platform to beat people over the head. I see you in the community utilizing that platform to actually do good in the community. And God had to prepare that heart. God had to put that kind of heart inside of you, didn't he?
Yes, he did. And it's something that I work on. I mean, I'm not complete, right? I mean, Paul talks about sanctification as a process. And so this is a lifelong process. And the other person I would encourage listeners to check out is Dallas Willard, who has written several books on living the Christian life and living in God's presence, and it gives really, I think, just very practical and thoughtful and non-churchy guidance on how to live in God's presence and be submitted, to develop disciplines, because there's so many people who read Dallas's books. They pick up Willardisms, and
I got it.
They're just things that they're very. He was, and to give people context, he started off as a Baptist pastor who eventually became the head of the philosophy department at USC in California.
Oh my goodness!
So he's a very smart guy, but he is very, very. Some people have compared it. Some people have called him the C.S. Lewis of our time.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about going into the pastorate? I think I know the answer to that question. You don't have to be in the pulpit.
That's right.
In order to be a minister. You can be in the marketplace. You can be the president of AT&T. Because you're doing the work. But if you had to say one final thing in the next 10 seconds to people, what would it be?
Well, I'd tell them that God is real.
Wow.
And that he loves us, and that he wants to be in relationship with us, and we need to act on that.
My guest today has been Mayo Flint on Defining Moments. I love you. One preacher said, and you can't do anything about it. I'll see you next week. So thank you for joining us. I want you just to take 10 seconds and look in that camera and just encourage people. Man.
Well, like I just said, what I would tell you is God is real. And I think if we can all, I will tell you, one of the things that Dallas talks about is that when we use the word believe, we need to act as if it's so.
That's good.
So when we came in, we sat down in these chairs because we believed that they would hold us up. And when we say we believe in God or we believe God, we need to act as if that is so. And that's what I'm trying to do every day. And I'm like everybody else. I'm I'm war with my flesh and the things that come at me from the world, and I get tired like everybody else. But I think the more that we can live into that reality, and it's all right there in the Bible. I mean, it's just, and the more time we're spending it, the more obviously real I think it becomes.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll see part 3 next time on Defining Moments.